I'm Leona Rocha-Wilson. I was born in H. Went to Maui High and Baldwin High. After graduating from Baldwin High, I joined the service. My mother felt that she wanted me to do something other than work in the fields, so we sat down together. I didn't have enough money to go to school, so consequently, as Mom and I sat together, she said, you know, if you join the service, maybe you can get your education on the GI Bill. Indeed, I did just that. I went to school at night for 8 years and studied fashion at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And while there, I designed a ruler called the Fashion Ruler. And I ended up starting my own company called Fashionetics. Later, I ran the company. I became the first woman president of this national organization called the American Home Sewing Association, made up of executives of all the major companies like Singer, Celanese, the pattern companies, and so forth. So I have had board experience in that I have worked in a national organization. What really started me off on running for this campaign was that I was very aware of the high school dropout rate. For every 100 students that enter our high schools, 21 drop out of school. In Hawaii, it's 21 out of 100. Nationally, it's 33 out of 100. These are our children. They're not stupid. They're bright kids. They need a curriculum that will serve their needs. My job as a board member is to see to it that we have two paths, a path for career and a path for college, so that all children will receive a fulfilling education.
The first one is in relation to the Lahaina Luna boarding program. There was discussion this year of possible funding cuts to that long-time program at Lahaina Luna High School. Are you in support of state funding for the program or against the one-of-a-kind expense?
Oh, you know, yesterday, Wendy, I went to Lahaina Luna. This is my second trip to speak with the principal there because it's my policy that if there is a question that I need to have some refinement on, it's to go to the source. And I went to Mike Nakano, who is the principal of Lahaina Luna, and spoke to him about this wonderful program. Lahaina Luna is the oldest school west of the Mississippi. It's going to be 175 years old. Now, this is part of our culture. How can we do away with something that is so important, not only to our culture, but to our children? The 95 students that are there, boys and girls, are paying their way, actually. I watched them yesterday. They had rakes. They were maintaining the property. They go to the cafeteria and wash dishes. And when they're in the community, in their dorm, they live as a part of a family. How can we do away with something that is so valuable in so many ways? These are some children who need additional support, either parental support, so the principal gives it to them, or support from the community, and they are getting it. So the students in this case benefit enormously. We can't and should not do away with this boarding program.
On the issue of library closures, the state library system faced $3.6 million in deficit for the 2010 fiscal year and threatened to close the Hana Library in East Maui, as well as a reduction in personnel. If elected, what would you do to ensure Maui's rural communities are protected and continue to benefit from services offered to other parts of the state?
Very aware of the fact, the role that a library plays with regard to our students. The library staffs a teacher, not just a librarian, but a teacher. And that's very important because it is through that teacher that the child will go, or the young adult, whichever, goes to the library, seeks some help, not just to find the items that they're looking for, but indeed to be guided and to be taught by this librarian who is a teacher. I would find the funds. I will be creative and try to identify areas in which we can perhaps save the libraries. Not perhaps, forget perhaps, I will save it. I mean, I feel that strongly about it. I think that what we need to do is to think outside the box and try to come up with ways, and maybe the funding can be found from someplace else and eliminate something from there. As a businesswoman, and I've been a businesswoman, I know what it is to handle budgets. And so looking at the budget and feeling and understanding the importance of these projects, then you look to see, is there something else I can cut? It's no different, Wendy, than in a family. You look to see what is important and you allocate those funds towards that importance and try to eliminate those other areas that may not be very important to you. And so work the funds so that you maximize the use of your monies. I support the libraries.
On the issue of furloughs, it's been such a huge topic this past legislative session. If elected to the post, what would you do to prevent a repeat of the Furlough Fridays situation at Hawaii's public schools?
Well, Wendy, just recently it was into law, actually signed into law, that we must have 180 days, school days. So the furlough days, the chances of that happening is non-existent actually at this time. However, that being said, I'm always planning for something that may be unexpected. And in the unexpected, I thought that perhaps what we should do is set aside a small percentage of our tax dollars to go into a fund, a school fund for emergencies. You know, recessions will happen, and will happen, they tell me, every 10 years or so. And if that's the case, though we have it into law that it's not going to happen again, it wouldn't hurt to have an emergency fund set aside just for schools to protect our teachers and our principals and our students so that they will not be subject to a recession.
As for the No Child Left Behind policy, even with Furlough Fridays, 13 of Maui's public schools and charter schools met federal benchmarks with adequate yearly progress. 5 more than met goals last year, so it's an improvement. Do you think the federal program is working, or is it a waste of time?
First of all, I think congratulations to all the schools that passed and all the other schools that are working so hard. And believe me, I know how committed the principals and the teachers are. I have been to schools from Hana to Molokai. I have been to schools central and upcountry. Been to Haiku, you name it, and I've talked with every principal I can talk with because they are on the firing line. They are working hard to see to it that our children are well taken care of and well educated. Now, with regard to No Child Left Behind, what is interesting about this No Child Left Behind is that the test has been created by each state. The reason we rank so low is our test is probably the hardest in the nation. So when our children are meeting goal, then you've got to know we're up there with the best of them. If you look at the numbers, we're down with regard to 47th or 48. However, if you look to see our test and compare it to Mississippi, which is in the top 10, our test is by far harder. So, you know, it's not a fair comparison. That being said, I think that if our tests were easier, all our schools would pass, no question. So I'm for the No Child Left Behind. I wish they had funded it a little bit more to give the teachers more help in having our students work with, or certainly be tutored further with regard to math and reading. Those are 2 skills that the more we have, the better we are at it. It serves us for the rest of our lives, for sure.
Any closing thoughts? This is a chance to tell a little bit about your contact information or any upcoming campaign events.
I think what is really important for me is for the audience that you know that for me, children come first. And I know you've heard this said before many, many times. But I will not, on the board, I will not vote for any project or any program without getting full understanding how it impacts the principal and how it impacts the teacher and how it impacts the student. I don't have all the answers, but I know where to get it. And I will fight for Maui's children. They are in my heart. And my mother taught me, she said, you know, education is a foundation for life.